Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and welcome to episode 21 of the Mandala of Life, 365 Days to Self-Discovery. Today we're going to talk about the Gate 8, the Gate of Contribution, also called Holding Together. This is all about the energy to provide a creative, individual expression of yourself. And by doing that, you empower yourself as well as others. And you do it by explaining who you are using your voice. With that said, let's get into today's topic, the Gate 8. Last week we talked about the Gate 23, and this week we're continuing in the throat center, which would be considered the mirror image of the Gate 23, the Gate 8. Where the Gate 23 says, I know, the Gate 8 says, I know I can. Before we get into new content, let's briefly go over what we talked about in our last episode. In our last episode, we talked about how the Gate 23 would be considered the decoder of the 43, which means it pretty much takes a thought and it translates it into something that other people can understand. It's all about getting what's in your mind out into the real world and manifesting it. We also talked about the idea that the 4323 is called an opposition, which means that it's much more common to have this type of configuration in your body graph, because the sun and the earth are always in opposition. And because of this, whenever the Gate 23 is in either the sun or the earth, the Gate 43 will always be in the opposite side. And because it's more common, the 4323 has more of an impact in the collective. And if you want more information about the Gate 23, please be sure to check out the last episode, episode 20, and you can get all the details that you want. For now, let's get into today's topic, the Gate 8. And remember, there are a lot more Mandala of Life episodes, so if you're interested, feel free to check them out. The Gate 8 is half of the channel of inspiration, the 1-8. This is individual energy that connects the G center or the identity center directly to the throat. So if you have the full channel defined, it means that you're somebody who speaks directly from the center of who they are. Some people would call the center of your soul or your true essence. Our focus today is on the Gate 8, which is a throat center gate. It is also the third gate of the quarter of civilization, where purpose is fulfilled through form. Or in other words, it's all about manifesting ideas and concepts into the real world. So we could say that the Gate 23 speaks the ideas or has the idea for a concept, and then it goes to the Gate 8 to start to bring that into form in some way. This can also speak to the idea of directing the creativity or directing the mutation into a place where it has a better chance to be adopted by the collective. Because ultimately, mutation by its nature is not something that the collective really wants, because they're all about patterns of some kind. And this does not fit into the pattern. That's why individuality can take or not. Not all mutations will be valuable to the collective. The throat center in human design is really where we want to get as much energy as we can, because the throat center is called a gearbox or also a center for manifestation. And the concept is the more energy you get to the throat, the more chance you have of manifesting things into the real world or the Maya. So any channel that has a direct connection to a motor and to the throat gives it potentially more ability to actually get manifestation to happen. But many other channels are what are called projected energy, which really talks to the idea that these are energies that need to be invited out of you. Otherwise, people won't exactly be ready to listen to what you have to say, which is very difficult for this energy, especially for the Gate 8, because by its very nature, when you carry the energy of the Gate 8, you want to contribute. It's the whole point of your creativity, to contribute to the collective, yourself, whatever that looks like. But if you're not acknowledged and you decide to contribute or explain yourself or sort of show yourself to the world without being initiated or invited to tell people what you want to say, then that's where you can have people not listening in the way you want them to. And what it means is that they're not actually going to accept what you have to say. You may be rejected. People might not like what you have to say, and it doesn't usually work well, especially if you have the full channel, the 1-8. It connects directly to your identity center, which is really the seat of your soul or the true essence of who you are. So when you have the full channel, you speak from the essence of who you are. And when people can't accept that, or they reject it, or they're not excited about what you have to share, then that's when you can have this idea that you don't really want to share yourself anymore because people really don't get you. And then when that happens, we have potential, as with all individual energy, to have melancholy. The melancholy here can come from the rejection, but it can also come from the concept that nobody is asking you to actually tell them about what you can do. Nobody is asking you for your contribution, and nobody is recognizing you for your talent, which can be very impactful because ultimately all you want to do is give your contributions to the collective. It's the nature of all individual energy. It's all about having a spark, an innovation, an insight, something new. And you want to tell people about it because you know that it's helpful. Because the whole point of humanity is to evolve. And we cannot evolve unless we have mutative ideas and new concepts that are delivered to the collective and adopted by the collective. It's how we move into the next step of our evolution. And the true goal of all mutative energy or all individual energy is to some way mutate somebody else, to some way change someone's perspective, to some way inject what you know, your spark, into somebody else, and have that spark become a fire that is tended by the collective. And when that doesn't happen, again, this is where the melancholy can set in. It's not always about the most talented, the best in anything. It's always about authenticity and being exactly who you are, allowing your own creative individuality to be expressed in who you are and not trying to be anybody but you. You don't need to grab anybody and tell them what you need to tell them because it won't work the way you want it to work. And yet, if you wait, get clarity, and understand that when the timing is right, people will ask you for your input. People will ask you for what you know. People will ask you for that innovative inspiration that you carry within you. And even if it's the hardest thing that you can do, if you wait and allow the collective to acknowledge your contribution, then you have potential to actually make an impact on the collective. An impact that only you could do, because ultimately it's about your individuality. It's about you as a person. And this is what kind of a contribution you're actually giving. You are giving people yourself. You are showing others yourself, exactly as an example of who you are. And when that happens and people like and want to adopt your contribution, then you will have done exactly what you want to do. You will have mutated the collective. This is moving and shaking energy. This is being a leader. This is keeping your identity as well as being part of the collective. And there's a lot of people who have actually done this in the world. So let's have a look at some of the people that we know who had an impact on the world, but yet they still kept the individuality of who they are. What you'll notice is that a lot of people with the gate 8 or the full channel, the 8-1, have this tendency of actually just going by their own just first name or just their name, and that's sort of their persona. So people know their name. And one of them is Adele, who's a famous singer who's won Oscars and Grammys and pretty much any award you can win for singing. And she has a full channel, the 1-8. And I think that she's a good expression of how the energy can work as being your own individual, but also giving yourself to the collective or your talents to the collective. Dwayne Johnson formerly used to be known as The Rock, and he got his break in wrestling and then he became an actor. But he's one of these types of people who kind of had a persona as well, retained his individuality, and yet became part of the collective in what he did. James Cameron definitely brought an individual spin and a very creative, innovative concept when he made the movie Avatar, which really nobody had ever seen done before. The way the graphics were, the characters, and all the things he brought to the collective, which really shifted it. And he definitely put his own spin and mutation into the collective. And finally, Mother Teresa. And what this shows is that everybody has their individuality and they're expressing themselves for who they truly are and being an example of who they are. And they all bring different types of things to the collective. So it really is dependent upon who you are and what you have to give to the world and what example of yourself, because that's what it's all about, being a full example of who you are. And by being who you are, people adopt and want to have your contribution. For Mother Teresa, it was all about the way she treated the people who were less privileged, the people who were starving, the people who were really struggling to get by and to live. And she treated them in a different way than other people did. And it did start something brand new. And there are foundations based on the work that she started. And the thing about the Gate 8 is that once you've contributed, it doesn't mean you have to stick with the collective. You don't have to stay there, because as an individual, it's always going to be an expression of who you are as an individual, and retaining your expression of your individuality is first and foremost. Sometimes if you stay with the collective too long, you become part of the collective, you could say, and to the point where you start to lose your individuality, which is usually the biggest anxiety anybody who has a lot of individuality feels, that you may somehow lose who you are amongst the crowd. But you don't have to. You can give your spark, you can give your mutation, you can give that thing that makes you different, and then you can just go back and wait for something new to show up. You don't have to change. You don't have to ask people to follow you. You don't have to try and take leadership. It is given to you because you are you, and because you are being exactly who you are. That's what people want, and that's what people will follow. Richard Rudd talks about this energy, and he says it very succinctly when he says, if you wish to escape mediocrity, you will have to find your own path and invent your own identity in the world. It will be like no other path, and it will take you beyond your comfort zone into dangerous territory where there are no assurances that you will succeed except for your faith in your own deep and vibrant nature. Individuality and the creative flow of the Gate 8 and this need to express yourself, because remember, this is a throat gate, so it's all about verbalizing who you are when you're given the platform, when you're given the invitation. It is all about you. It's all about being the expression of you that is purely authentic. There's no need to be anybody but you. And when you're fully expressing yourself as yourself, that's when people can notice you and see something special in you, because you're here to be different. You're not here to be like everybody else. And that's your gift. It's a gift that can change the world and change the collective in a way that nobody can really predict. But there's potential within this energy for you to actually do it. And if you have the courage to be fully yourself and to wait for the timing and that moment when people will actually see you for what you're doing and your contribution in the world, and even when you feel down and unappreciated and not seen, to know that the universe will open the door at some point, then this is when you can actually have the impact that you've always wanted to mutate, to change the people one at a time so that they can see the world through your eyes, so that people can see you for you, so you can speak from the truth of who you are and show the world what you have to offer. We go from a thought to a verbalization of what exactly we want to do, to a concept that we can actually contribute to the collective and mutate the collective and penetrate the collective, to actually do that thing that we so want to do. And then we move to another energy. This energy talks to the idea that you still remain an individuality, but this is what we call the most existential gate of all human design, of all the mandala. This is the gate 20, which is the gate of now. It's here that we're not looking forward and we're not looking back. We're in this present moment. There can be charisma in this energy and also unity. This energy says, I am now. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back next week with episode 22, the gate 20, the gate of now, and also called contemplation. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.